This is the 20th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning, and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. It is Classic Week. We're rapidly approaching Grand Lake and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Well, Grand Lake is more up in Grove, Oklahoma, and then the Classic is going to be held in Tulsa. I think this is the third. Yeah, it'd be the third Bassmaster Classic on Grand. We had the Cliff Pace in 2013 on the jig where it was really cold and everyone was afraid that the boats were going to slide into the water and they weren't going to be able to get the thing off. And then we had the Christie Evers Classic. I think that was like 17, where Christie was leading it. And it was like the first time they had Bass Track, and they go into the final day and Evers runs up the elk and catches a 27-pound bag. And then one of the fans yells to Christie that Evers has 27 and Christie only had one or two at the time. And then he spun out and tried to catch a mega sack. And then it came in and Edwin in his home state blew the roof off of the thing. So a lot of history on Grand Lake, and I cannot wait for this one. Momentarily, we're going to go to Pete Robbins, outdoor writer. He's attended every Bassmaster Classic since 2010, and we are going to dive into Bassmaster Classic Week. Tomorrow, we're going to get more into the nuts and bolts of it. Johnny Schultz from the Deep Dive app is going to come on and talk about how he thinks from a statistical standpoint where and how the Classic will be won. But our first guest of the day, we are going to go to a longtime sponsor and supporter of BTL, Bass Talk Live, and that would be Pate Shumaker from Pro Guide Batteries. He's been on the road. Now, Pate just got done with Red Crest in Alabama, and he's taken a circuitous, I think the word is circuitous, route to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where there's some really cool stuff coming down the pipe from Pro Guide. You know, they've been around for, I think they're approaching 50 years now, but adding a lot to the market as far as the lithium starters, and now chargers. So we'll bring Pate in for a few minutes to talk about that. Thanks for jumping on BTL, Pate.
Hey, Matt. Good morning. Super excited. Thank you so much for having me on this morning. So
yeah, we've had you on before. No, it is a big week. Like I said, you've been traveling around. I mean, you are kind of the man that runs Pro Guide. A lot of new products that have been on their big push in the industry for a company that's been in the industry for such a long time. But just touch a little bit on the Red Crest Expo and then what you're looking forward to. You guys are headed to Grand and then have the lovely task of setting up the expo before the doors open on Friday. If it's anything like it's been in the past couple years, there will be thousands of people waiting to get in.
Yeah, we're super excited to be at the Classic this year. Of course, we had a nice weekend at Red Crest. What a fun weekend to see so many dudes just battling, Dustin killing it. So such a good weekend. We launched our charger line this year at the Red Crest show, kind of kicking off this 10-day bass fishing extravaganza that's going on in the industry right now. So kind of back-to-back weekends. That's always, it's probably fun for the community. For vendors and people running these shows, it's a bit of a haul. So super fun 10-day stretch though. So yeah, I'm actually in Chattanooga right now, trying to slide in some spring break action with my kids before I head back to Tulsa. So good stuff.
Talk a little bit about the chargers. Obviously, as our power needs have increased with the explosion of technology in the bass fishing industry, chargers have become a big player. I know you guys have been working on this for a number of years, finally ready to market. You guys can get the first look at it if you didn't get to see it at Red Crest at the expo in Tulsa this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So the new Pro Guide charger line consists of 7 new models. Everybody's familiar with the single, the double, the 3-bank, the 4-bank. We've added a 5-bank, which there is one other out there in the industry right now. a couple others. And so that's going to be new for us to have as an option at Pro Guide. So we're super excited about that. And then 2 other models that are becoming just really popular with guys setups out there, especially with the single 24 volt and the single 36 volt. So 2 new models, one being the 1224, which is technically a 2-bank charger. Bank 1 is your starting and your electronics battery, single 12 volt bank, and your second bank is a dedicated 24 volt. So for those that were running 2 different chargers so that you could charge a 12 volt and a 24 volt, now one charger, one housing, one plug, all multi-chemistry, so it can do lead acid, AGM, and lithium. Paired with the 1224 is the 1236. We have seen just a massive interest in this charger. So just like the 24 volt, single 12, single 36 volt bank, and multimodal on the chemistry of the 12 volt. On the 24 and the 36 volt, that's just going to be charging for those single or paralleled 24 or 36 volts. So those single lithium batteries. So 7 new models. Like I said, lithium, AGM, lead acid, of course, and then I got that nifty little wake feature. Hold the button for 3 to 5 seconds, and that battery will actually wake up if it is in a sleep mode. So nice little feature for the lithium users out there.
If you guys are looking for batteries, looking for questions, Pate, a lot of the Pro Guide battery staff will be at the expo. I haven't nailed down a time. I'll be at the expo also. Right now, I have tentatively penciled in 2 o'clock on Friday and then 11 o'clock on Saturday. You can ask me about it. Pate will be standing next to me, and then after I explain it, he'll fill you in on what I got wrong. Sound good?
You're a pro.
I've learned it. I've spent a lot of time trying to understand batteries and how it all works, but I've actually enjoyed it. I know through your appearances on BTL, also Matt Looney's appearances, a lot of guys have a better understanding. So looking forward to seeing you in Tulsa. Follow Pro Guide Batteries, all their social media platforms for where the booths are and when we can get in contact with you. And like I said, if you're going to be there, stop by the booth. Would love to say hi. Yeah,
absolutely. Hey, just a special shout out to all the BTL listeners. I was at Red Crest this weekend, and I had a gentleman walk up to the booth, and they're like, I don't know his name, but he has a son with cancer. Who is that? And a guy walked up and wanted to shake my hand and said he'd been praying for my son. So just it was a really special moment. So appreciate all the listeners that take the time to think about not only my family, but all the St. Jude's families that you guys are actively supporting. So very much appreciate that.
Katie and Gretchen will be at the Bassmaster Classic from St. Jude. They're the ones who run the Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic. I know they are really looking forward to meeting with you. And I know that you're also looking forward to potentially getting involved with St. Jude and Pro Guide Batteries in the future. Who knows where that relationship will lead. But yes, thank you for your support of St. Jude, and then sharing your story on the show as well.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll let you get back to spring break. Have fun in Tennessee.
All right, man. Thank you. See you guys.
All right, see you, Pate. All right, that is Pate Shumaker, who he's basically was born into the battery business based there in the Ozarks. So we're going to take a quick break from the show, and when we come back, the man, the myth, the legend, I got something kind of exciting like to bring him in that I just discovered like 20 minutes before the show started because I accidentally clicked something wrong on my Microsoft search engine, and I think Pete's going to get a kick out of it. But we're going to take our first quick break of the show. We're actually going to run that new Pro Guide battery commercial first, and then bring Pete Robbins in. He's got a 2 p.m. flight to catch to Tulsa, Oklahoma, but we got him before then. So BTL on a Tuesday, Bassmaster Classic week. We'll be back right after this.
Your early morning mentality is your every hour mentality. All gas, no brakes. Focus, purpose, power. Destined for the water, but confident everywhere else. A calming buzz before the storm, the truth of nature itself. You can't catch lightning in a bottle. There's a limit out there, but it's not with your gear. Unrelenting power delivery. unparalleled weight savings, keeping you on the water whether you run a 9.9 or outscoping your best 5. In this rare air, there's power in the silence. It's a mindset, thinking only of the things that matter and freeing your mind from the things that you trust.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
All right, welcome back. BTL on a Tuesday, Classic Week. And let's not keep them waiting any longer. Let's bring them right in. All right, we'll give them an equal screen. Pete Robbins, thanks for jumping on BTL before you jump on a plane and head to Tulsa, Oklahoma for the Bassmaster Classic.
Good morning, Matthew. Happy Classic Week. It's a special time of year. I look forward to it every year as much as I did at my first one many years ago.
Thanks for hanging tight. So I forgot to tell Pate that it was Central Time, so he jumped on, and he's in Eastern Time. Like I said, he's doing a little spring breaking with the family. So I just hop on for the first segment of the show, but definitely wanted to get them on. Not getting into it now, but man, the technology boom with all the new stuff that's out there right now, and then watching the companies try to navigate and keep up with what the demand is from the anglers. It is an exciting time in the sport of professional bass fishing and bass fishing, whether it's the technology, the boats, the baits. We're seeing all sorts of new rods and reels and configurations, especially from Fujita, a bunch of different guys that are coming in. And I think it all culminates with this Bassmaster Classic. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but you have old school knowledge, history, favorites, guys who should dominate, new school, untested techniques that maybe we've never seen before on Grand. And I think we're going to get to kind of see a molding, a meshing, or maybe a separation of all those things this week on Grand Lake. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so. It feels like either things are going to completely come together and there's going to be some global unification, or we're just going to split apart in a giant explosion of everyone hating everyone else and resenting everyone else in the way they fish.
All right.
I think that's good for the sport. I think it's good
too.
for the sport to have tension points and people debating things and people concerned and rooting for certain people or rooting against certain people.
All right. So I've got this feature on my Google where like I you do this, your search engine, but there's like a new little button on it and I accidentally pressed it and I didn't realize what it was. And it's called Copilot on Microsoft Bing. You know where I'm going with this?
No, I'm afraid to hear where you're going with this.
I was making sure that I had like your official title right, because even though we know like what you do, I just like to make sure that it sounds professional. And so I type in your name and I typed in Pete Robbins Bassmaster. And then instead of hitting the search engine, I accidentally hit the Copilot engine, which generates an AI biography for you. So you could do this for anyone. So this is your AI biography that I literally hit this button and this just popped up. Now it's different every time you do it because I did it like 10 different ways, but it pulls everything on the internet. You want to talk about technology, and then it generates a paragraph that says, who Pete Robbins is. So just as a formal introduction, Pete Robbins is a seasoned outdoor rider, provides a fan perspective of BASS while possessing insider knowledge of the sport. His passion for fishing and extensive experience make him a valuable voice in the fishing community. Pete blogs about fishing travel on his website, Half Past First Cast. He has covered on-the-water tournament events for every Bassmaster Classic since 2010, bringing his unique insight to the world of competitive bass fishing, whether it's exploring the Potomac River or sharing his favorite moments from various tournaments. Pete Robbins continues to contribute to the fishing world with enthusiasm and expertise.
I'll take it. On the one hand, I'm thrilled that I'm in the public sphere and that they can say entirely positive things about me. On the other hand, as a writer, I'm really afraid that that's going to take over my job in about 2 years.
I know. That's exactly what I was worried about too, because that would take me probably an hour to write that.
Yeah, I don't know that it would take me that long, but
to do the research, if I didn't know anything about you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously AI has its benefits and it has things that we're going to need to be afraid of. As a writer, I'm very afraid. I feel like I have more writing to do than ever before. But at the same time, I could see a scenario where a lot of it goes away. So I'm certainly happy to be on BTL and have other opportunities in case the writing goes away, because just like a fisherman having to adapt to new technology, whatever you do, you have to adapt to it.
That's where I was going with that. I think we're very narrow in our mind as far as, we focus on bass fishing and everything that's going on in that. But I think when you look at the broader picture of things outside of fishing, there's a lot of the same issues that are going on in every category, completely unrelated to fishing, just in everyday life, this being one of them.
Absolutely. And it's scary. It's scary when you've expected things to be the same way for the rest of your life and something changes that paradigm completely. I mean, whether it's politically or socially or in terms of your hobby or your profession, it's scary to feel like you could be made irrelevant in a matter of minutes.
Well, you are certainly not irrelevant, Mr. Robbins. And let's dive right into the Classic. That's what everybody wants to talk about. That's what you're jumping on a plane to cover. Like I said, you are 20, this is your 25th Classic.
This is, you said everyone since 2010. I've worked everyone since 2010 for bass. This is my 19th as a member of the media and my 20th total. And it's the 20th anniversary of my first one as a member of the media, which was the 2004 Classic won by Takahiro, where I had the true privilege of riding with Aaron Martins on the first day of competition. And as I think about that and what that means, it makes me sad that Aaron's not here, because I think Aaron had a lot more to give and we got a lot from him. But I know that he would have adapted well to whatever changes came along. He might not have liked them. He might have spoken negatively about them, but he would have found a way to make them work for Aaron.
Oh, he would have dominated, and then he would have given interviews about how he doesn't like it. It's not his favorite thing. He'd much rather be power fishing, and where's my $100,000 check?
Yeah. I missed the interviews, because the interviews, I did some ghostwriting for him for a while, and it was painful because to get to the actual topic would take an hour. But now that I don't have that, and I missed the opportunity just to call Aaron and hear the craziness that came out of his mouth, you realize that's what makes a career in writing, the ability to talk about little things that happened along the way, little snippets of people's personality.
Could you imagine Aaron's stream of consciousness watching Live Scope while he's mic'd up?
No, I mean, if he had three screens going on, he would have been bouncing from one to the other.
Oh, come on, man. Oh,
bro,
yeah, sure, bro, just eat it. Definitely miss. I'll tell you what, it's still amazing how intertwined Aaron is in the industry on a regular basis, how much you hear the other anglers, the outdoor riders, everyone still talk about him on such a regular basis. We just had Ted from Gamakatsu on. They're talking about their new Nano Alpha that came out, and I had 3 emails from people that were like, hey, I see a new hook's coming out. It's got a coating on it. Please tell me this isn't going to take the place of Aaron's hooks, like with his picture on it. And they were like, no, we're still all in on keeping Aaron's legacy alive and keeping him on those packages. There's so much stuff that you just open up your boat and it's like stuff that he had a hand in, a finger in, designed, memories related with those specific baits. Kind of just a testament to how valuable he not only was to the fishing industry, but as a person, how many relationships he made off of the water that were meaningful both ways.
And the fact that he didn't piss people off. I mean, maybe someone's hiding it, but everyone out there is disliked by someone else except Aaron. I think
he pissed one person off in his entire career, and I think that was mutual.
At Falcon Lake, they had a little issue one time.
I think that was mutual, but
but it was Aaron being Aaron. There was a lot of bros involved in it. It was the person I think is closest to that and has a career yet to develop is Taku. I mean, Taku seems to be universally liked. And what's interesting to me is Taku is every bit as much of a scoper as anyone out there. I mean, yet other people have become the flashpoint for this, and no one says, Taku isn't versatile. Taku isn't a winner. And I think it's because he enjoys every moment he's out there.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Classic. We're going to dive right into this. Is this the most up in the air Classic that you can remember covering as far as how it's going to be won and who the favorites are going into it?
I don't know about how it's going to be won. I mean, obviously there's a substantial contingent of people hoping that it's won shallow power fishing and expecting that it's going to be won out with a minnow. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But I think up in the air in terms of who's able to win. Absolutely. Because if you think back to Classics 20 years ago, it was hard to make it, but there were always a few guys who had no shot at winning. You know, either it was their first one and the lights freaked them out, or they just weren't capable of competing on that level, or they were out of their regional element. No one's going to be surprised if a Tyler Williams wins it, or a Kyle Patrick wins it, or any of those rookies. I mean, certainly not Ben Milliken. No one's going to be surprised. Some people might be upset, but top to bottom, it's fantasy fishing in general is hard to pick these days because literally 80% of the field, if not more, has a chance to win at every event.
When it comes to a favorite, there was a circus around Jason Christie in the Classic that Edwin ended up winning, and Edwin obviously got his due for Grand, but I think even Edwin would say that Christie had more of a bead on Grand at the time of that Classic. A couple favorites, obvious favorites in this one would be Christie and Luke Palmer. Do you think there's more pressure on Christie to close the door on Grand this time around, or do you think that the 2022 title that he knocked out on Lake Hartwell really relieved a lot of pressure that he was feeling to get a Classic title, and he's going to be on a free roll this week?
I don't know. Christie's a hard one to read emotionally because unlike an Aaron or unlike Hackney, he doesn't wear his emotions on the sleeve. I mean, he's a stone cold killer on the water, but it's hard to tell what motivates him. I think he wants to win every tournament he's in. I think there's a certain amount of pressure because it's at home. Obviously, the fact that he won one took some pressure off, but fishermen in general and winners in particular are greedy. They don't want to win just one. They want to win everyone. And Christie, if he wins a second Classic here, it puts him up into that pantheon. I mean, we saw Hall of Fame inductees were announced for 2024. You got to start thinking about who that next class is of guys. And with a second Classic win, I think Christie moves up into a likely, if not a steel trap lock class, Hall of Fame pick down the road.
Yeah, especially when you take into account all of his wins over on FLW too before it became Major League Fishing. You mentioned the young guys. Do you think what we have seen over the first quarter of the Elite Series season has, with I think 7 rookies in the top 15 of the Angler of the Year standings and first and second here, has knocked off any of the apprehension for these first-time Classic guys, to where, you know, you take a Kyle Patrick, you take a Ben Milliken, you take a Tyler Williams, who are, you know, openly saying, holy cow, these are the guys that I looked up to. And then you see how they've competed in the first two. Do you think that bolsters their chances going into the Classic, saying, man, I've already proven that I can not only compete with these guys, but can, I'm going to use the term, dominate these guys in the first part of the season?
It certainly can't hurt their confidence. What I've seen about these guys, and I know Kyle the best, I've probably watched Milliken the most of this bunch, and I've worked with 4 or 5 of them, is that they came into the field ready to be professional anglers. They had their sponsorship lined up. They had their media opportunities lined up. They got that it was a job. I mean, talking to Trey McKinney, who, when I was his age, I don't know what I was doing. I was playing Tecmo Bowl on Nintendo. I mean, he's polished. He's polished from a media perspective. I had to interview him about something, and he called me back later and said, you know, I wasn't really satisfied with the answer I gave. Let me rephrase it this way. And I've always tried in my writing career to befriend 1 or 2 rookies every year. It's to my advantage to get a guy in my corner who I can call and get a good answer from at any time. And usually I'm lucky if I get one out of every rookie class. This rookie class, it just feels like all of them, these guys were made in a lab to be anglers. And that's maybe not fair to the amount of work that they put in, but they get the complete picture. And part of that is being ready for Classic Week. And Classic Week's going to be tough for them, particularly with a 90-minute drive from Grove to Tulsa on the regular. But they're going to be more ready than a past class has been.
Maybe it's just me because I compete in the Opens and I know these guys all from last year, but it seems like the Opens anglers, the majority of the Opens anglers who won an Open, used to go into the Classic complete anonymity. No one would be around them at media day. You'd say, who? And there'd always be a guy that kind of came out with the top 5 after the first day, and you'd be scrambling to figure out who they are and be like, oh, he got in because he won that Classic. It seems like these are already household names. And I don't know if that's because of social media, because of you can watch these guys on their YouTube channels that have now dropped Toledo Bend and Fork, whether it's because of the FS1 coverage that Bass has done with all 9 of the Opens. But as a writer, do you get that feeling too? Like they're already a bunch of guys that everybody knows and is following, instead of, hey, here's this guy's 15 minutes of fame, and then it'll fade back into anonymity once the last cast is made on Sunday?
It's funny you say that, because I went back through certain classic results, and obviously, as you said, I've been to all of them. I've interviewed a lot of these guys, and I had trouble picturing some of the past Opens qualifiers in my mind, or even remembering their name or where they were from. But these guys, you're right, they feel more permanent, and part of that is everything that you described, from FS1 to YouTube to Bass doing a good job of giving them a platform. And part of it is that these guys are just more prepared. They've gone through 9 events at this point. It means something to win an Open against the likes of Ish Monroe and Randall Tharp and Brett Height and Mike McClelland. And that's what these guys have done. And not only have they won tournaments, whether it's a Tyler Williams or a Milliken or a Kyle Patrick, but they regularly beat those guys in the Opens, which is a hell of a feat in this day and age, because all of those guys have access to the same technology plus 30, 40 years of knowledge.
You freelance for Bass, or you are a Bass employee, or you like work for them? It's a weird combination. Like you're doing stuff for Bass, but you're also a freelancer. You wear many hats, I guess. I need that as kind of a setup to my question.
I am technically a senior writer for Bass, which I was at El Salto one year, and Dave Precht was down there, and he said, Pete, we want to make you a senior writer at Bass. And I said, well, what does that mean? He says, well, it means you can't work for FLW anymore. And I said, okay. I said, is there a pay raise? No. Is there like something else going on? Do I get some other benefit? No. He goes, we'll give you a lot more work, as much work as you can handle, which proved to be true. But
sounds like a Jeffries title. They must have had that conversation back then.
Yeah. Assistant manager to the regional secretary or something like that. But no, I mean, it's an honor for a guy like me. I'll never have the chops of a Steve Wright or a Craig Lamb or a David Brown, who get to travel around to all these tournaments, although it's my goal eventually to travel to all of them. But I'm thrilled that the Bass crew treats me like part of the family when I'm there.
Okay, I asked that question to ask this question. Have there been meetings at Bass with the staff, with the writers, about how to coverage, explain, make more exciting the way that tournament fishing has been going over the past years? Just watching the first 2 tournaments and seeing some of the writing, it seems like I could see the wheels going backstage going, all right, we have to tell this story, especially when it comes to technology, about the skill that's involved in this, instead of just continuing the way we've always done. Because it is new, there's a whole group of anglers who need to understand the skill level that's involved in this? Or has that kind of just been each individual person going, hey, here's an avenue that hasn't been explored yet?
If there's been a meeting, I have not been invited to it. But I will say the team is very cohesive. I mean, I get texts during the day from Ronnie Moore or Craig Lamb or Steve Wright telling me things that they've seen or heard, or things that they're working on, so we don't work on the same things. And I will give a lot of credit to old gravel voice Steve Bowman, who he pushes you hard. I mean, when you go to a classic with Steve Bowman, if he sees you having fun, he's not happy. He says, there's another story to grab out there. There's something we haven't explored, something we need to look at. And to their credit, I've never been told what to write about or what not to write about. And I think particularly back to the time of the split, where right before that classic in Knoxville, I interviewed Aaron, I interviewed Skeet, and I worked with Ott and all of those guys. So I've never, I feel very fortunate that I've never been told this is what you have to write about and this is what you can't write about. I've pushed it a few times and I've gotten chastised after the fact for a few word choices, but they tend to be pretty free with me.
You meant that. I want you to go back in the memory vault and hit us with some of your favorite classic stories that you've ever covered that stick out, that you're, exceptionally proud of over the past several decades of covering this.
Well, for so many years, I was writing the Bass blog because they didn't have live. So I was out there. So I really didn't get a chance to do any long form writing. And I miss that. I'm going to miss being out on the water and seeing things happen, seeing being the closest boat to Van Dam when he catches the winning fish in Beeswax Creek, or being in Catawatchee feeling the pressure. But last year, being on the bank most of the time, I had the opportunity to explore some longer form things. So, for instance, Brandon Card had just come back from meningitis.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to talk to Brandon and his wife and his brother and Mark Menendez, who had meningitis, and sort of delve into that story. And the last day I sat down with Gussie's wife, Shelby, and she was extremely gracious because I'm sure she was a little bit nervous. And we just talked about it. And Christy's then fiance, now wife, was sitting there too because they're best buds. And we talked about what it's like to be the wife on the third day where you have no control over it, yet you're obsessing about it all day long and trying to distract yourself. So I like those types of stories. I like exploring the human interest side. I think that's technology aside. What we need to do is get people invested in the individual anglers' stories. And that's how you get people to care about a sport. It's not our sport is participatory, but at the same time, we care about baits, but we also care about the people who are out there doing it. And I think that's why people are quizzical or perturbed by the fact that some of their longtime heroes are not doing as well as they used to be, because we root for people who were invested in.
If you're headed to the Classic, Pete, what are some of the things that, I know it's different city for city, but some of the things that you would recommend people not miss from starting Thursday all the way through Sunday if you want to get a full Classic experience and leave saying, I feel like I experienced the Bassmaster Classic as a spectator and a fan?
You got to go to at least one blast off.
Which day? First, second, or third day? Because I've gotten asked that a lot, and I'm not really sure which one to tell them. First morning.
First morning, because you get the full field. Everyone is still excited. Everyone still is at zero, to use the cliche. And, that's when the energy's there. The third day, you're down to half the field. People tighten up a little bit. And, stories are being written, but you're not going to get as much out of it.
So it's worth the hour drive to Wolf Creek,
and that's
battle the traffic, get in the crowd, and watch all 50 of these guys idle past, all knowing that they're tied for the Bassmaster Classic lead.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate day of hope right there. Everyone has a chance to gain angling immortality at that moment. On the flip side, I would say go to the third day weigh-in.
Okay.
Because second day weigh-in is the worst of the three. Not that they're bad, but second day weigh-in, you have guys getting eliminated who have to list every sponsor that they've ever had, and that's just brutal.
So first day blast off, last day weigh-in. What about that in between? So now you've got all of Thursday, all of Friday, and half of Sunday. Or all of Friday, all of Saturday, and half of Sunday.
Expo at least 2 days if you're there anyway, and go as early as possible, because Saturday afternoon, it's insane. And particularly in a city like Tulsa that draws from surrounding areas and has a huge fishing contingent there, it's going to be packed. And, if you're going to some of the cooler booths, they may be out of some of the cool stuff that you want to buy by Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning as well.
Should you find yourself there on Saturday, Frank Scalish and myself will be at the Pradco booth at 12:30 giving out, we have a limited number of the color number 7 spooks right there. There they are. Frank said he will have an inordinate amount of silver Sharpies to sign the top of that spook right there. So stop by and say hi to us. Limited number. We'll have some on Saturday and then also at noon on Sunday. And then I will also be at the Bass Tank booth at 2:00 on Saturday. Should you find yourself there during the busiest time of the expo.
That's one cool thing. I love that you guys are doing that with special runs and drops and things like that. That's another reason to go to the expo. I saw, obviously, you have those special run spooks. I saw Tulsa Tackle is doing some special Grand Lake colors on Spro Chad Shads and Little Johns.
Yep.
And for the first time, the Swim Bait Universe guys will be there, which is pretty cool because they're going to have some limited edition glide baits. So I am definitely going to drop a few $100s there because
have you ever seen, this one's not open. Anyway, so at the time when he made this, so the streaks on the side, BTL was 17 years in. So there's 17 orange streaks, which pays homage to the 17 years of BTL with the BTL color. Then the purple also was the original color of the Bass Zone when it was just a website. So that's the purple head. And then the 7 on the bottom is to celebrate after Mark Jeffries, fell and hit his head and we didn't know if he was going to live. When his first show back, I said, I was afraid you'd come back and say that your favorite color was 7. And so Frank made that. And then we've done a couple limited runs through Pradco with that. But that bait right there is near and dear to my heart. And I know there's a lot of BTL listeners that have gotten their hands on that. So
is Jeffries going to be at the Classic?
I don't know. He's probably going to be like in Maine or Hawaii or something recruiting for his bowling team. At the expo, there's a bunch of stuff at the expo, like you mentioned, but what at the expo would you recommend hitting? Because I know there's seminars, there's meet and greets, there's information booths, there's entertainment, there's also stuff for sale. Is there anything that you would recommend that people make sure, just in general, that they carve out a little bit of time for at the expo to be an experience of?
If you're going to buy a boat anytime in the near future, I would go and I would crawl all over the boats there. When else are you going to have a chance to see every brand in one place, including brands that, most of us don't have a dealership nearby to see? I would go if there's a particular angler you want to meet. I mean, there's one person in the fishing world who makes me nervous to get on the phone and call, and that's Rick Clunt. No, Rick Clunt. And I have made it my mission that I'm going to go by Rick's booth and try to just talk to him and check him out and just watch him deal with people, because for whatever reason, I've been in the boat with him once in my career, and he still intimidates me now as he did 19 years ago.
Dude, that's the same with me. I think it's just because of the way he talk, like soft spoken. Like, I'm always afraid of asking him a dumb question because he's always been very gracious, and he's never said that's a dumb question, but he just intimidates me. Yeah, you're right. But not in a bad way, not in like I'm scared, just in a respect type of way. But it's a bad question because he doesn't elaborate on it. When you ask him a question that he thinks is good, he'll actually elaborate on it. Now you have to have your recorder or your pay like right up in his face so you can hear him. But yeah, that's crazy that you get that same vibe too. Absolutely. So I want to go over there and talk to him. Yeah, he's intimidating. And what's intimidating is it feels like, obviously he's promoted products his whole career, but he doesn't need you in the same way other anglers do. Yeah. I mean, if he never promotes another product or he never gets another interview, he really doesn't care. And that sort of shifts the burden or the power in the dynamic. I'm not saying I have power in the dynamic when I talk to Kevin, but everyone's nice to us. Yeah. Well, most people, but Kevin knows how to play the game. Kevin is a true professional. He doesn't need me, but Rick really doesn't need me. Yeah. I did see on Rick's social media. So this is his 50th year. And he's partnered. He's got some special edition 50-year things, including the 50-year coin limited edition. I think whatever the expo opens on Thursday. A couple years ago, like the swim baits were my first stop. Like I'm going to seek out where Rick's booth is, and that's 100% on the buy list, the coin and the 50-year bait with the box that he has in it, and it's going in the BTL studio behind me. It's a one-off, a once in a lifetime to get some of those. So you don't fish the lure? It's a Rico, right? Yeah, no, you don't fish it. No, that goes in the case. Okay. You could just get a regular Rico and fish it. Like, why would you fish the 50th anniversary Rick Clunt edition? Just feels like it has a little bit more mojo on it. I do have a story about that. I've borrowed baits, stolen baits, asked for baits from various. From Rick Clunt? You stole baits from Rick Clunt? Not from Rick, but years ago, I traded a frog to Aaron for a Mega Bass Giant Dog X. Mm-hmm. And it was, Aaron. He was in his 30s at that point. We didn't know what he was going to become. So I fished it a lot. It was a really cool color I had never seen anywhere else. And I caught a lot of fish on it. And I just kept it in my tackle box. And one day I was out fishing with someone, and I said, you need to put a spook style bait on. And it was a guy who didn't fish all that much. And I think he had 8 or 10 pound line on his spinning rod. And the first thing I see him pull out is the Aaron Mega Dog Giant X. And I'm like, dude, you can't. I'm like, you can take any other bait in the box except for that one, because if you lose that one, I'm going to kill myself. And so it's sitting on the shelf there now. But, I have all those autograph baits. I have those special baits. And I guess I should do a better shrine to them than I already have. It's like a baseball, right? Like, you don't play catch with an autographed baseball. Yeah. You can get a regular baseball to do it. Now, I mean, listen, I do have like 1 or 2 baits that I haven't used, but like there will be a time when like I'm in an open and I'm on I make a final day and I need 1 or 2 more bites. And if it's that specific, like I can picture the bait right now where I will tie it on with a couple hours left and be like, I've been waiting 10 years for this moment to throw this vixen in this spot to catch the fish. So it's an old vixen or an old square bill or something like that. Yeah, it's a barely legal lemon ice vixen that is still in the package that is worth a ton of money, will always be worth it. But there's a couple like here's what I picture, Pete. I picture going into Lake Hartwell on day 3 in October with a shot to make the classic, and I tie that sucker on with 2 hours left and have a 5-pound spot, just absolutely obliterate it. And I've waited 10 years to have, actually, I've only had it like 4 or 5 years, but ever since I got it, I've had in my mind, like, that fish will catch me, will be a critical bait that will catch me the key fish.
I love that it's a topwater too, because there's no sexier way to get over the top and win a tournament than with a topwater bait.
Yeah, like the lemon ice too, where it's kind of clear with it's like the old packaging with the like kind of pinup girl on it with the black pad. It's like a first run, barely legal vixen.
I have an old one, and we don't have trout stock lakes here, but an old barely legal vixen in the clear rainbow trout color that I have just caught a ton of fish.
It's got like the kind of bumpy sparkles on the top of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right, we're going to need to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue classic talk with the one and only Pete Robbins. It's BTL on a Tuesday, Bassmaster Classic Week. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top 100, Strike King.
AFCO. Any fish, any water.
All right, welcome back. BTL on Tuesday, talking with Pete Robbins. All right, let's get into some on-the-water things on how you do it. Tomorrow, we got Johnny Schultz from the Deep Dive app from Fish the Moment on. He's going to present all sorts of charts and analytical data that goes back from the last 10 years of every tournament on Grand. This time of the year, it'd say this is historically where the tournament's going to be won, how it's going to be won. And I love that because it takes a lot of the subjectivity out of it. But I also love the subjectivity part in the fishing and the pontificating of how it's going to go down. You've seen this go down a lot. Right now, talk me through on a Tuesday, before you've gotten there, before you've gone to media day, in your head, how does this Bassmaster Classic play out on Grand Lake in 128 hours?
128 hours, we're going to see 2 old school fishermen, perhaps not fishing in an old school style, make the top 10. We're going to see, or the top 6. We're going to see 2 rookies or near rookies like a Fujita in the top 6. And we're going to have this cosmic explosion of fishing styles, fishing eras, and fishing fan bases collide at the end. And controversy is good for the sport. Conflict is good for the sport. I'm expecting there to be big weights, possibly bigger than the previous classics, although Edwin's weight will be hard to beat from that last day. But better weights top to bottom. This is an incredible field of anglers. They're skilled at a lot of different things. Obviously, there's one thing out there that shall not be named that is going to play a big role in it. And you can like that or dislike that, but they're going to catch the snot out of them. It's a really good lake. It's a pattern lake. It's a lake that, in my experience, fishes big. And it's a place where people know and care about fishing. So it's going to be a good classic. Every classic is good.
One predominantly on one bait or one on a myriad of different baits that together make up the winning pattern?
Man, I don't know. Obviously, if a minnow dunker's out there, it'll probably be on one or two different little minnows. I really hope it doesn't have to be Jason Christie, but I would love to see someone go with that, 1 ounce Colorado blade spinnerbait like he did that last time and slow roll it under those dot cables and get smoked and just, cover new water every day. I like that style of fishing. I'm a spinnerbait guy. I'm old. I wouldn't mind to see it one on a square bill. I wouldn't mind to see some key fish caught on a glide bait. Ultimately, I have a story to write no matter who wins it and how they win it. So my job is safe.
As a writer, though, and as an angler, do you think it is better for the Classic to be won predominantly on a single bait or on a number of baits? Because it would, at first glance, there's a couple baits that stick out in my mind, like the Jay Ellis flipping jig or specific jerk baits, the ones where, it's one on a number of different ones. It seems like one always gets a lot of the love and the others don't. And it's just tougher to really, like the Randy Howell, Livingston lure crankbait, comes to my mind as a bait where he won on a lot of different baits. Like the key fish was actually caught on a chatterbait in the back of Spring Creek, the 6-pounder that won it for him. But everyone thinks of the red howler on the bridge as the primary bait there. Like as a writer, that's got to be tough to try to cover multiple winning baits because you're not only getting it from the angler, but then if you leave stuff out, the sponsors come to you and say, why wasn't that in there?
If they complain to me, I can live with that. It's up to the angler to promote what they have to promote. I can't think of many recent classics that have produced a long-term staple bait. A big winner coming out of it that really juiced sales.
The FS Minnow for Christie when he won on Hartwell gave it a big pump. He had the hook with it. He had the bait on it. He talked about how he'd been using it on 10 Killer and promoting it. It was a year, 6 months before a lot of the other minnow style baits. A lot of people were just using the Armor Shad at that point or a Baby Z2. This one kind of came on the market. I think that win got him a big push.
Yeah, I don't think of it as becoming a staple simply because I think everyone caught up to it eventually. And there are a lot of other minnows that, at least to the uninformed consumer like me, seem pretty much indistinguishable.
I think the Hank Cherry win the last time they were at Gunnersville with Stetson Blaylock and one other angler who was throwing it. Was it Palmer? One of the other anglers, but they were throwing that brand new Speed N that had just come out. Like that got a big push, even though it ended up not being the winning bait. But to have 2 in the top 6 in that Classic, that bait kind of popped off because of that.
I'm trying to think back though. Can you think of the last thing? I mean, Red Eye Shad with Van Dam winning in Beeswax Creek. Is that the last one that became like a real I don't remember what Chris Lane won on. I remember.
Yeah, I do. Ugly Otter.
See, the Ugly Otter is seemingly a regional and specific bait to me. It's not like a universal, like the Red Eye Shad. I think if you're a bass fisherman in this country, you in all likelihood have a Red Eye Shad in your boat.
Davey Height with the bacon rind.
Bacon rind. I still have some bacon rinds.
Yeah, I think of that kind of sticks out to me now. Casey Ashley is like a homemade underspin.
Right. It just, Jordan Lee with the comeback jig, which he's not, I don't know, does that even exist anymore?
Yeah, the problem is that's like the most effective jig. It's like just an ugly dragon jig with the round rubber. So I think Alton kind of ran into that too with his first time at Hartwell. Both of them came out with the jig, one with Booyah, one with Strike King. But for the mass, it's not a sexy bait that you get in your hands and you're like, oh yeah, you're like, this looks like a garage jig, which is oftentimes the most effective jig.
Your little round jig
that you can have, but it is hard.
I don't know. I think if you're the angler, you can look at winning the Classic as a 1-year plan or as a 40-year plan. And your 1-year plan is, I'm going to promote this bait to the fullest right now. The better plan is to think, what am I going to be doing in 20 years? What is my name going to mean? What is my name going to mean? You see guys with Ike on their hat or BP on their hat or Fear My Heart on their hat. They're not selling a product with that prime real estate. They're selling their persona.
How important is a classic? We talk about this in football, a Heisman moment, right? How often I get sick of hearing Heisman moment in hostile environment in college football.
And but we also he's out with the knee. He's out with the knee. I don't get that one.
But the classic moment can be big for guys who haven't even won the Classic, who don't win the Classic, but have that moment. But how important is it in a win to have a classic moment that for years and years is replayed, that everyone can point to and say, that's the fish. That's the deal that sticks out in people's mind that makes them a household name.
Yeah, you have to have that moment, that fish, that catchphrase, whether it's Takahiro, I knew it, or Ike, never give up. I mean, those are the moments that if you're a fan, you can feel that. You can feel someone who's excited by the moment, who wants to be out fishing. We all want to be able to imagine ourselves in their shoes, in their boat, running back to weigh in with the winning fish in the live well. And having that moment makes a difference between a win and a career-defining win.
And I say that because I think when Polinick, who was the Bass Nation representative, finished third in that classic, he did finish third, I think, on the Bandit 100 that he got out of the bargain bin and was there competing right there with Kevin on the stump field. I think he had a classic moment on that final stage that gave him the nickname the Prodigy, that vaulted him to the point where we were all like, all right, we got to figure out how to pronounce this kid's last name. We got to figure out how this guy got, finished third from Idaho. But it was that classic moment that he had with that crankbait that vaulted him into instant relevance.
Yeah. I mean, Polinick, whether or not he had that classic, was going to become a superstar no matter what. He is the complete package, top to bottom. But that was such a fascinating tournament because I was there in Katawachi and we were close to Kevin and Aaron and Scott Rook and Remitz and that whole group. And it's the first time that I realized that there's not a right way to fish, because we watched Remitz fish and he would barely move his body and he would hook one and he would just kind of go like this and move around the body. And we could see Polinick 50 yards away. He would get one on, he'd run to the back deck and he would go down with it and he would swoop in. And they were both catching fish at an equal pace and of an equal quality, but they were doing it with the same sort of lure in a totally different way physically. And to watch two people like that is, I mean, that's one of the thrills of my career, to have been there in Katawachi and seen everything going down and how great fishermen all find the same fish and how really great fishermen manage to distinguish themselves in the crowd.
Now, on the flip side, you could also gain a lot of fans by classic heartbreak. I think the most notable reason for this would have to be the Jim Bitter with the Tim Tucker, where he's measuring the winning fish. It bumps. Tim Tucker says, hey, best rider in the history of bass, by the way, passed away literally the year before I started covering it. One of my biggest regrets is that I didn't have a chance to meet Tim Tucker before I started in this industry, but asked him to remeasure it, measures it on the front deck, slips out of his hands, bounces off the windshield of his boat back in the water, and he loses the classic. That is replayed and burned into our minds. But on the flip side, I feel like Hank Cherry got a big bump because of what happened to him on the Megabass 110 outside Airport Cove on Grand Lake in 2013 when Cliff Pace won, when he hooked that 6 to 8 pounder that would have won it, and then had to watch it in front of 15,000 people in the arena over and over, and realized that he was a foot and a half away from winning that classic, which made it sweeter when he won the back-to-back classic. So there are, I think of Randall Tharp on Gunnersville, where he hooks that big one in the tree, comes off and it comes off. But you can also make a name for yourself, I guess, in a notorious way too, but also get a bunch of fans, because we can all relate, whether it's a club tournament or a big fish, to the heartbreak of how much you've poured into it. And then in that one split second, it's something that will live with you forever.
Tharp was the one I was going to mention. He's had such bad luck at classics, and I was there when he lost that giant in the tree up in that creek up at Gunnersville. But it was worse than that. He started off on a flat across the lake from that cove, and he was catching some fish. I think it was on a trap or something similar. And when he left, fans would move in and start graphing and fishing right there. So it was done. Then he goes into that cove and he hooks a decent one on a dock. He goes to that tree and he loses the monster, and he just collapses in that spot. And his boat broke down that day, and he had to wait for a service crew to come. And then I think the next year at Hartwell was the only classic that was colder than Grand in 2013. It was like 7 degrees at takeoff. Mm-hmm. And I remember Tharp got to his first spot and flung his jig out, and it never sank below the surface of the water because it had turned into ice overnight.
Oh my gosh.
And then his camper froze that night, and whoever drove him into the arena knocked his boat into one of the stanchions or something there and did some damage to his boat. So, like, to me, that's a lot of the off the water stuff that happens that you can't control, that you have to deal with in any tournament. But in Classic Week, it's just magnified that much more.
And then obviously Christie with the 4 fish, the first time he was at Hartwell, literally needed a 14-incher, and in true Christie fashion, he's like, no, I'm doing it on this chatterbait. I'm doing it on this spinnerbait. It's going to go down power fish. And he only needed that. But I think that garnered him so much attention, so many fans who wanted to see him be able to pull it off, and also the storyline that Bassmaster created through it. So there's numerous ways to become a household name in the Bassmaster Classic. One is obviously probably more desired by the anglers than the other, but I mean, it all lives in classic legend and lore.
I mean, the worst thing about this sport is that when you have a moment like Cherry did or Christie did, and the world's watching you, you feel more alone than you can ever imagine feeling in your life. You're out there on an island by yourself. But what both Christie and Cherry showed us in later classics is only you as an angler have the opportunity to turn that around. You're alone in a bad way. You're alone in a good way. And one more story I was thinking about with Christie was we were following him at the 2016 Classic when he expected to have a good chance to win. And he was fishing by, it's kind of like a pipeline deal.
Yeah, I mentioned that. The first he was fishing just past the Honey Creek Bridge on like a shallow flat.
And some guy walks up on the bank, and like you said, it was the first year of Bass Track. And the guy goes, hey, did you hear Edwin has 25 pounds? And Christie, to me, is one of the most stoic, emotionless, unflappable people I've ever seen on the water. And you could literally see all the air go out of him. And you could see the full range of emotions running through his head. Why did that guy say that to me? Is it true? What do I need to do if he really does have 25 pounds? And it's like he didn't spin out, but you could see the wheels start to get a little loose.
Yeah. I don't think people give him credit for that. I think he immediately had a spin out, but what he did then was he said, okay, that's true. 20 pounds isn't going to do me any good. And what was going through his head was every place he's caught a 5 to 7 pound bass on Grand. And he immediately switched to, I could care less about 20 pounds. My goal is 25 to 27. So people look at his weight on that final day and say, oh, he heard that. He cracked under the pressure. I think just the opposite. I think he went into killer mode and said, I don't care if I finish 8th in this classic, I'll leave 40 grand on the table. But if that's true, I got to go catch him. And this is my best chance to catch him, but it's also my chance to come in with 2 fish.
And that's what you have to be willing to do. You have to be willing to go up on that stage with nothing or with 2 little fish and look like an idiot not look like an idiot, but look like you underperformed after waiting all year or perhaps your whole life to get to this point.
Yeah. And Skeet was the best at that. You look at Skeet's classic finishes over the course of his career, and yeah, he won on the Red River, but he also came to the classic stage with like 0 fish a lot and owned it and went into it and stuck to his guns on what he thought he had to do to catch the 5 biggest. And there was 0% salvage in his classic fishing.
I think there's a bunch of guys out there like that. I always think the ultra confident guys, the Skeets, the Kelly Jordans, the Dean Rojas, the Ishman Rose, who are Denny Brower, who are literally not afraid, and they can go out and not have a bite in a day, and they're 100% convinced that night that they're going to catch 30 pounds the next day. And it's like being a cornerback in the NFL. You got to have a really short memory.
What are some of the characteristics that all of the classic champs have in common that have allowed them to reach the pinnacle? You've interviewed probably more than just about anybody out there.
I don't know. It's such a different group. I mean, to compare Skeet to Cliff Pace to Jordan Lee, it's 3 very different persona. Obviously, you have to be able to catch them. I mean, that's just the given. You have to be able to catch them. Typically, you have to be unflappable in terms of not getting caught up in the classic pressure. And not that you have to be low key, but you have to be a person who's not going, not that the classic's not going to change your life, but that you have to believe that if you don't win this classic, you're going to win the next one. And that's what we've seen with the guys like the Skeets and the Hank Cherries and the Jason Christies and certainly the Jordan Lees, who, I mean, that's someone who hasn't come up because he's not in this classic because he's just coming back.
Oh, he'll be in the next one.
But he'll be in the next one. And I mean, I was talking earlier about guys we expect to see in the Hall of Fame someday, whether it's the Christies or the Clark Wendlands or people like that. If Jordan Lee wins a 3rd classic or wins an Angler of the Year, now that we no longer have a requirement in the Hall of Fame that you have to be 50 to get in, does he become the earliest inductee ever?
He could be, because he's got a Angler of the Year over on MLF. He's got the World Championship over there. He's got 2 Bassmaster Classics. He's got I still think he has. He has to be.
I mean, he's just a tremendous angler, and he feels old now.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, the first time I ever met Jordan was in 2013 at Grand Lake at the bar at the Holiday Inn with Mark Zona, Karen Zona, Jordan Lee, Doug Cox, and a couple other people sitting
Mm-hmm.
around the bar after the tournament. And it was just like, I remember that as much as I remember Cliff Pace winning, because that's those moments when you get to be around those people. And not to say like I knew that man before it was cool, but like I saw Jordan Lee before he had won 2 classics, before he had won any classics.
Yeah. I think that 2013, the game face Cliff Pace, we'll talk about that because it was on Grand. It was the first one on Grand. I don't think Cliff gets the due for the competitor that he is. When you get to know him, when you get to see how dedicated he is into the sport with the Black Label Balsa and how much he works on it, there's another side to Cliff. I mean, some guys are open books. Some guys are more private. But, dude, the competitive drive that is inside Cliff Pace, once you get to know him, and the killer mentality that he has on the water is not often talked about, but it is very much alive in that guy.
I haven't spent a lot of time around Cliff. I've worked with him. I admittedly have not cracked that nut.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard one. I mean, he's a protege in some ways of Gary Klein. I think Gary Klein is a little bit more of an open book, but also very determined in doing things his own way. And that's what I see in Cliff to his benefit.
And ironically, the way he won that classic with the cold temperature, with the deep jig on the rock, not getting many bites, was it took someone of his demeanor, of his conviction to do that for so long with everything on the line, knowing that you're going to get 1 or 2 opportunities and you have to take advantage of them and you're going to be able to do it. I don't think there's a lot of guys that could have methodically and meticulously thrown that football jig and not had a complete and utter mental breakdown on day 3 of the classic, especially when I think he only came in with 4 on that final day.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Your personality, I mean, you have to be able to catch them, but your personality has to fit the particular classic that you're going to win, whether it's a run and gun classic or a sit there and soak it and grind them out classic, or just, the only one I feel who is different than that, because he's different than everyone, is Kevin. Kevin could go and win a slugfest in Katawachi. Kevin could also go to Pittsburgh and catch 12 pounds and win.
Do you think the classic is different without Kevin in it? Did that add a totally different element? Because for so many years, it didn't matter. For 28 years, it didn't matter where you went. The guy was always the favorite for probably 25 of them. Do you not think that was in the back of the other anglers' heads? I know he won 4 of them, but you look at his top 10s on it. I don't care whether you're fishing against the angler or the fish or whatever they want to say at media day. In the back of their heads for 2+ decades, what percent of that classic field was going, damn, I got to figure out how to beat Kevin in this? And how many times when they had a good day were they going, is Kevin having a better day than me?
Yeah, and to prove yourself as an angler, you had to beat Kevin. Iaconelli, to ascend to the pinnacle of the sport, had to beat Kevin. Skeet had all those back and forth battles with Kevin where, is Skeet going to finally ascend to the top and dethrone Kevin? And sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. But that's what you had to do to prove it to yourself. You have to have a Michael Jordan at the top for the sport to really matter at this point. And it's hard now with 2 or possibly 3 tours. I would love to see Trey McKinney and Milliken competing against Dustin Cannell and Jacob Wheeler. I mean, we're not going to have that sort of single angler to rally around like a Kevin, who you have to beat the king to be the king.
All right, last classic question, and then I do want to dive into what you guys have going on at Half Past First Cast, because you always have some cool trips planned up. You mentioned Ben Milliken. A year ago today, you tell me that Ben Milliken is on the Elite Series and fishing in the Classic on Grand. And I'm not going to say I wouldn't believe it, but I'd be like, wow, that's going to be a zoo. Have you ever seen anyone come onto the scene like this, like Ben Milliken? And what do you think the 402 crew is going to be like when he crosses the stage? And how do you think he handles the pressure of his first Bassmaster Classic?
Doesn't seem like anything phases him. I mean, I've only talked to the guy 2 or maybe 3 times. I've now watched a bunch of his videos. I would guess a year ago I had not watched any of his videos, just because that's sort of not my scene as an old guy. But nothing seems to phase him, but nothing seems to phase Trey McKinney or Kyle Patrick or Tyler Williams either. I mean, Ben is more of a lightning rod at this point because he's gotten into some notable scuffles with people. He's a very visible reminder of everything that the sport was not in some ways. He's come out and, I mean, he came to the lunch table and he took the prime seat. That's where he is now. It's only two tournaments into his Elite Series career, but he's won an Open in Grand Style. He's qualified for the Classic, and I don't know what his accountant would say, but my guess is he has more residual income from various sources than 80 or 90% of the guys out there, and that has to be a point of resentment too when he seems like a Johnny-come-lately.
Fair enough. All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, we'll talk about half past first cast, and we'll let you jump on a plane, and then I'll see you in Tulsa. It's awesome. BTL on a Tuesday with Pete Robbins. We'll be back right after this.
Yes. Fishing isn't just a hobby, it's an obsession. Whether it's blazing hot or bitterly cold, bright sunshine, raining, or even snowing, someplace, somewhere, there's a fish that's ready to bite. And as the angler, you need baits that will catch the fish anywhere, anytime, no matter the conditions. From throwing top waters to cranking the depths, know the baits to throw. Choose Spro.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out. I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronic setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com. All right, welcome back. Wrapping things up here on BTL on a Tuesday. I did get a text during the break from the one and only Bass Fishing Hall of Famer Gene Gilliland, who was in studio last week to talk about a number of different interesting things. He said to answer the question that he's seen in the feedback, yes, the bass go back into Grand Lake via the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife hatchery trucks. Cold water, very low mortality rate, historically 99 to 100% live release rate in previous classics. And then to touch on some additional activities that are going on during the Bassmaster Classic week that people might be interested in attending. He said the U.S. Army youth programs on Saturday and Sunday are can't miss for young anglers. And then Media Day is on Thursday at noon at the Bass Pro Shops in Broken Arrow. And he said the public is welcome to attend that event. There's a link on Bassmaster.com, the 2024 Attend the Bassmaster Classic link that kind of has a list for all the things that you guys can attend. So shout out to, as Jeffrey's called him, Mean Gene Gilliland. I didn't get that reference, and then I've got Peacock, and Peacock has all of the historical wrestling stuff, and I've never been a wrestling fan growing up, but then I'm around a couple guys who have talked me into watching like a WrestleMania because they're like, you guys, and then I got into it. like not into it where I watch it, but like if I have some time to kill. So then I watch like all the WWE documentaries about all the old, and then I saw Mean Gene and was like, oh, that's where that reference came from, because everyone would call him that, and I'd be like, well, he's like the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. I don't know why everyone calls him like Mean Gene, maybe just because it rhymes, but it goes back to an old WWF wrestling. Were you aware of that?
Mean Gene Okerlund?
Yeah,
I was not a wrestling fan, but I knew the name.
Yeah, okay.
I had never heard Gene Gilliland called that, though, which you're right. It is kind of funny because he's about the mellowest dude you could ever imagine meeting.
It is. All right, half past first cast. You and Hannah have a bunch of stuff going on. What kind of trips are you working on for the 2024 season?
We go 60 days after the Classic. We go to Panama, which is prime topwater season for tuna, which is my obsession now. I told her after the first trip that I would sell my bass boat if I could do that 30 days a year. And I meant it. Fortunately, she didn't force me to do that. But that trip is full. But we have a second trip to Panama in January of 2025 that I think still has a few spaces.
Topwater still?
Topwater, and also a better mix of inshore fish like roosterfish and cubero snapper, and a better chance at a marlin. So January is a good time. In most of the country, it's cold. There's not as much deer hunting, not as much tournament fishing. Good time to get away. So we'd love to have. We've had several BTL listeners come with us in the past. We'd love to have some more.
Do those tuna just, when they hit it on top, are those the ones that just smoke the entire spool?
Yeah,
like it's just
it hurts.
They hit it as they go, and like you literally can't stop some of them.
It hurts, and then they go down deep, and that's the hard part. Like they go deep, and they don't want to come up, and when they finally start to come up, they come up in a spiral, and it just takes forever. And the water's clear, so you see them, and your arms are just jelly, and you think that you almost have them, and you still have like 50 yards to go to get them up, but. It's the best eating fish, the best fighting fish. And like, it's kind of the progression. Like if you've caught a largemouth or a smallmouth on a whopper plopper, that's good. Mm-hmm. You catch a peacock bass on a wood chopper, that's really good. You catch a tuna on a big popper, it's freaking orgasmic.
I think that might be the first way that's been described on BTL in 20 years.
That's my favorite thing. We're going to El Salto in June, which is my favorite time to go to El Salto. I don't know if we have some space on that trip. We're always happy to have new people come. As you know, it's a very
That's
special
the big
experience.
deep diving crankbait, big worms. They get out deep and you jack on them till your arms hurt.
10XD when you get on that school. The lake is at its lowest. Usually it's at about 40 or 50% usually. So they gang up offshore. Catch them on a 10XD, which is something I never get to do on the Potomac, where I never fish deeper than about 3.5 feet. And we are going last year at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame induction banquet. We bought a trip to Gros Savon, where we had been before. We're going fishing there for a day, red fishing nearby for a day, and then Hannah, my lovely 5'0" redheaded wife, is going to shoot herself a gator. So I don't think she's ever shot anything. I'm a little afraid to get firearms in her hands, but she's going to kill a gator and get a wallet or some shoes or a purse made out of it.
I like it. You can check out all of the adventures along with a lot of blogging from Pete and Hannah on a daily basis at halfpastfirstcast.com.
And one more thing, we are both going to be at the Classic. I think if all goes well, I'm going to be on Bass Live Mix a little bit. Definitely Friday morning starting at 7, I should be on it. And if that works out, I think that's kind of the test balloon. I may get some other opportunities, but expect to see her and possibly me at the expo several times. So if you see us there, please stop us and introduce yourself. We'd love to meet fishing fans, love to meet potential traveling partners.
All right. Kind of along those lines, I've gotten some people on the instant feedback who have been wanting to know what BTL is going to be doing at the Classic in the home state. I will be at the expo on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Stay tuned to my social media at Matt Pangrak on Instagram for where I'll be, when I'll be updating my story along with posts. But also as far as shows, Bass Live does a tremendous job covering the Classic. You can watch, and I think you can still watch the press conference live on Bassmaster.com. I know you've been able to in past years. You'll have blogs, stories, all sorts of coverage. There's all sorts of stuff going on at the expo as well. My plan is to do live late night BTLs following each day of the Classic, starting Thursday night. So Thursday, Friday, potentially Saturday. It just kind of depends. That might be the go out to eat with sponsors night. So it might be like a midnight BTL, but I'm coming home each evening, and then Sunday night following the Classic, utilizing a number of the top outdoor riders in the industry based on what their schedules are. Everybody has very busy schedules on this. We're going to have some video interviews from the guys from that day, and then we'll break down each day. Stay tuned to BassZone.com for the schedule for that Classic week. Like I said, it'll be later in the evening, 9, 10, 11 o'clock, but it'll be kind of a recap from each day of the Bassmaster Classic, and then we'll be back the Monday following the Classic on the 25th with regularly scheduled BTLs, and also opening the BTL merch store, all new redesigned high quality merchandise. The Day 4 apparel, the Frank Scalish Signature Series apparel drops then, as well as the new redesigned Circle BTL logo and quarter zips and high quality hoodies, and in a number of different hats. That store will be open for 2 weeks then. So that's kind of what we're looking for in the future there for BTL. Also, if you guys are attending Bassmaster Classic and see me in the expo, feel free to stop, say hi. I love talking to the listeners, the viewers. It's crazy how you always find something in common with a bunch of people, and I love to talk to people on where they're from, what their story is, how they ended up at the Classic. So I think that's about all the odds and ends as far as Classic week as I have, and we'll go over this again tomorrow with Johnny Schultz. Also on the boat side, we will have Matt Looney from Bass Cat Boats who will jump on, kind of like Pate did this morning. If you guys are interested in looking at a Bass Cat, he'll talk about all the new models that they have there. I know you're a cat dude, aren't you, Pete?
I've had 6 in a row, I think 7 in a row, something like that. Yes, I'm a fan.
Yeah. You want to climb around a Jag, Puma, the Puma STS, the Cougar, the Caracal, all those will be at the Bassmaster Classic, along with a bunch of guys who can answer all your questions about it too. Chuck, yes, that's a good question too. Also, that following week, the St. Jude Bass Classic shirt will drop. So,
man, you're a busy guy.
Dude, I try to. That's just like half of it, but I'm getting through it one day at a time, right?
And when's your next open after that?
First week of May in Logan Martin in Alabama.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I got a couple weeks there in between in April I'm getting a new cat too, so I have to unrig this one, get the new one rigged up. So thanks to Bass Tank for that.
It's a good time of year to be a bass fisherman. I mean, I just feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose a lot of the time, trying to fish myself, trying to follow this, trying to work on other projects. But if you can't get excited right now, you're in the wrong sport.
I agree 100%. All right, Pete, I know you probably have to, you seem like a guy who's already packed. Like, I feel like you've got your suitcase by the door, ready to go.
I'm packed. I don't know if you can see it here. My dog, once he sees the suitcases, he flips out. So I tried not to break them out till this morning, but it doesn't make him happy to see the suitcase. So we're lucky we have a really good dog sitter who he loves. But man, when you got a 10.5-year-old dog, it's always a little scary to leave him.
It is. All right. Anything else you want to get in here before I let you go, Pete?
No, just looking forward to meeting people at the Classic. I mean, I'm there to work as you are, but it's also the world's biggest party for bass fishermen. It's a good time. I hope to meet more people. I hope people go into it with the right attitude, that we're lucky to be in this sport and to have the opportunity to chase little green fish and write about little green fish for a living, and to really care about it and get involved in it. I'm thrilled.
Well said. Have a safe flight. I'll see you in a couple days.
See you soon, Matt.
All right. See ya. All right. That is the one and only Pete Robbins. I think we got everything covered for today. Like I said, tomorrow, Johnny Schultz on the show. Analytical approach to how things will go down on Grand Lake, along with Matt Looney from Bass Cat Boats. And then Thursday, a couple things going on. There's 2 stops if you guys are in the area that you need to make. Go over to Andrew Upshaw's social media. He is doing a really cool event at the Academy Sports and Outdoors, one of his nationwide tours with Academy, in the afternoon, where you can get rod, reel, spool, talk with Andrew. A number of different pros will be there, and then you can ease over. I guess, like Gene said, it is open to the public. You want to stop by the Bass Pro Shops in Broken Arrow for Bassmaster Media Day. 2 great events. I will be at both of those. So I think that's all we got for today's show. Big shout out to Pete Robbins. Always enjoy the shows with him. Always wish we had more time for the shows with him, but very thankful that he is a regular guest. And I feel like the AI description of what Pete Robbins did was deadly accurate. So, all right, we'll see everybody tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Central Time. That's all we got. We'll talk to you then. Later.